For Maria, life as a maid in the grand mansion of billionaire Alexander Hawk had never been easy. She was just one of the many faces behind the sparkling walls of luxury, invisible to those who lived within it. But everything changed the day she found out she was pregnant. At first, Alexander had been charming. He'd offered her a place in his world, filled with lavish dinners and extravagant gifts. But when the truth came to light, everything shifted. Instead of offering her the support she hoped for, he turned his back. Feeling betrayed, he cast her out without a second thought, refusing to take any responsibility for the life growing inside her. Maria was left heartbroken and alone, her hopes dashed as she faced the harsh world outside the mansion's gates. She had no family to turn to and nowhere to go. The whispers and judgment from the outside world stung just as much as the rejection from the man she thought she could trust. But time has a way of making people rethink their decisions. As months passed, Alexander's mind became consumed with regret. The weight of what he'd done to Maria and the child he had. Abandon began to gnaw at him. His life, filled with wealth and success, suddenly felt empty without the woman he had cast aside. Now, he had to face the consequences of his actions, knowing it was too late to undo the hurt he had caused. The orphanage wasn't a bad place. It was filled with the laughter and chatter of other children. Yet Precious often felt an overwhelming sense of loneliness. Surrounded by the noise, she still found herself yearning for something more. While the other kids played and enjoyed their moments together, Precious's heart longed for the one thing she didn't have: a family of her own. She often dreamed of parents who would love her, care for her, and make her feel truly special. It was a wish that seemed so far out of reach, yet it remained in the back of her mind every single day. The nuns did their best to make the orphanage a home. They taught the children to read, to write, to be polite, and they always had smiles to share. But no matter how kind they were, it couldn't replace the love and warmth that only a family could provide. And every night, as Precious lay in bed, she would close her eyes and dream of a life that might never come true. Precious often dreamed of the day she would finally have parents of her own. She longed for the moment when she wouldn't feel different anymore. But it wasn't until she turned 15 that something unexpected happened. One afternoon, a couple named Chiku and CLA visited the orphanage. They had been married for 10 years, but had struggled to have a child of their own. As they looked around at the other children, their eyes eventually settled on Precious. She was standing quietly off to the side, and there was something about her, a quiet strength, that softened their hearts. After a long conversation with the nuns, Chiku and CLA made a decision that would change Precious's life forever. They wanted to adopt her. Precious could hardly believe the news when she heard it. Her heart swelled with excitement. Finally, she was going to have a family of her own. The day she left the orphanage, she held tightly to Chiku and CLA's hands, her eyes sparkling with hope. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling as though her life was about to become everything she had dreamed. At first, everything seemed perfect. Chu and CLA were kind and caring, showering Precious with love. They bought her new clothes, cooked her favorite meals, and even enrolled her in a new school. For the first time, Precious felt like she truly belonged. Her new life was everything she had wished for a while. For a year, it felt like Precious had finally found the family she had always dreamed of. But then one day, CLA came home with unexpected news. She was pregnant. Precious was overjoyed, clapping her hands with excitement for them. Little did she know, this news would soon change everything. When CLA gave birth to a healthy baby girl, everything shifted. All the love and attention that had once been shared with Precious now focused entirely on the new baby. Their little girl quickly became the center of their world. Chiku and CLA doted on her, giving her the best clothes, toys, and food. They were always busy caring for her, and slowly, Precious felt the warmth she had once known begin to fade. As time went on, they started to forget about her, their attention consumed by the baby. The smiles that once greeted her now seemed reserved only for their daughter. Precious tried to be understanding. She did all her chores, helped with the baby, and kept to herself, but things only grew worse. Soon, Chiku and CLA began treating her differently. They gave her more responsibilities, like cleaning the house and washing clothes. "Look at you, you're older now, Precious. You need to help more," they would say, but Precious could feel the change in their tone. It wasn't a request anymore, it was an order. She was no longer the child they had once cared for. She had become more like a servant in their home. Every day, she scrubbed floors, cooked meals, and looked after the baby. She felt invisible, like a shadow lingering in the corner of the room. The love she had once felt from them was gone, replaced by coldness and harsh words. One evening, as Precious sat quietly in her room, she could hear Chiku and CLA laughing and playing with their daughter in the living room. Tears filled her eyes. "Why don't they love me anymore?" she thought. She wiped her tears and tried to stay strong, but her heart felt heavy. She missed the days when they would hug her, tell her stories, and make her feel like she truly belonged. Precious didn't know what the future held, but deep inside, she clung to the hope that one day she would be loved again. Life in Chiku and CLA's house grew more painful with each passing year. The couple stopped sending Precious to school, claiming they no longer had the money to fund her education. Precious was no longer the bright, hopeful girl she had once been. Instead, Precious had become a servant in the very home where she had once been loved. Every morning, before the sun even rose, she would start her chores. She scrubbed the floors, washed all the clothes, and cooked meals for the family. But no matter how hard she worked, it was never enough. "Why is this floor still dirty?" Chiku would snap, his eyes filled with anger. His disappointment was palpable whenever something wasn't done perfectly. "You should be thankful we even took you in," he would remind her, his words cutting deep. Precious had no friends, no one to talk to. She wasn't allowed to play or rest like other children. She had to stay home, doing all the housework. When their daughter made a mess, it was Precious who had to clean it up. When the baby cried at night, it was Precious who had to wake up and rock her back to sleep. "Do your job right, Precious," CLA would say, handing her the crying child with no care for the pain it caused her. As the years passed, the house became more like a prison. Precious was isolated, her only company being the endless chores and the cold indifference from Chiku and CLA. The only time she felt a brief sense of freedom was when she worked odd jobs around town to earn a little money. She would wash clothes for the neighbors or sweep their yards, just to escape the constant demands and long days of work at home. One particularly hot afternoon, after hours of cleaning the yard under the blistering sun, Precious accidentally knocked over a vase in the living room. The vase shattered into tiny pieces as it hit the floor. CLA immediately rushed into the room, her face twisted in anger. "How dare you break my vase?" she screamed, her voice echoing through the house. "Do you even care about anything? You know how much that cost?" Chiku joined in, his voice cold. "You're a foolish girl. You're nothing but a burden to this house." His words hit Precious like a stone. Tears welled up in her eyes as she bent down to pick up the broken pieces of the vase. Her hands trembled, but she didn't say a word. She had learned long ago that speaking up would only make things worse. That night, as Precious lay on the thin mattress in her small room, she knew she couldn't stay any longer. Now 18, her body and heart had endured as much pain as they could. She had to escape. Quietly, she packed the few belongings she had, a faded dress, a pair of worn-out shoes, and the little money she had saved from her old jobs. Her heart raced as she tiptoed through the house. She was terrified that Chiku or CLA might hear her, but the house was eerily silent. With one last glance at the home that had caused her so much pain, she slipped out into the night. The streets were dark and quiet as she walked away from the only place she had ever known. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she couldn't look back. After hours of walking, the sun began to rise, and Precious found herself standing at the edge of a bustling city. The streets were alive with the sound of people, cars, and vendors calling out to passers-by. The city was nothing like the small town she had grown up in. It was vast and overwhelming, full of life and noise. For days, Precious wandered the streets, searching for work. She knocked on doors, asking if anyone needed help with cleaning or cooking, but each time she was turned away. "We don't need anyone," they would say, closing the door in her face. Her small savings quickly disappeared, and soon, she had nothing left. Hunger gnawed at her stomach as the days passed. For 2 weeks, she slept on the streets, her body weak and exhausted. Every night, she wondered if she had made the right choice in leaving, but deep down, she knew she couldn't go back. Just when Precious thought she couldn't go on any longer, she met a kind woman named Auntie Soy. Auntie Soy had noticed Precious wandering the streets and offered her a small job cleaning her house. Precious worked hard, as she always did, and Auntie Soy was impressed with how well she cleaned and cooked. "Do you have anywhere else to stay?" Auntie Soy asked one day, noticing how tired Precious looked. "No, ma'am," Precious replied quietly. Auntie Soy shook her head, feeling sorry for the young girl. "I know someone who might need a maid," she said. "A wealthy young man. He's looking for help. Would you like to work for him?" Precious's heart lifted with hope. "Yes, ma'am, I would." Auntie Soy smiled warmly. "Good. I'll talk to him for you. I think this could be the start of something better for you." With tears welling in her eyes, Precious nodded. Maybe, just maybe, things were about to change for the better. William, the wealthy young man, lived in one of the grandest mansions in the city. It was a place so opulent, filled with riches, that many would dream of living there. But William, despite all his wealth, was a lonely man. His heart had grown cold over the years as he surrounded himself with people who only sought his money and influence. He trusted no one. When Auntie Soy recommended Precious for the job, William barely glanced at her. She was just another worker, someone to clean and stay out of his sight. But for Precious, this was a new beginning. After all the pain and hardship, she was finally in a place where she could work and live in peace. She was so grateful for the chance. Every morning, she woke early to clean every corner of the mansion. She made sure the floors sparkled, the windows were spotless, and the meals were prepared just right. William barely spoke to her, and that was fine by Precious. She was just happy to have a roof over her head and food to eat. The mansion was grand, but it was also quiet. William spent most of his days in his office or out on business trips. He had everything: cars, expensive clothes, and fine art decorating his walls. But inside, he felt empty. He had no family, no real friends. The people around him were snobby and only liked him because of his wealth, not because they cared for him. For a whole year, Precious lived and worked in that big mansion, keeping to herself, and doing her best to avoid any trouble. William noticed how different she was from the others. She didn't try to impress him or seek his attention. She never asked for anything extra. She was just there, quietly doing her job. One evening, after a particularly long day, William sat alone in his grand dining room. The table, long enough to feed 20 people, felt even more empty than usual. As Precious cleared the dishes, William spoke for the first time in months. "Precious, do you ever get tired of this?" he asked suddenly, his voice softer than usual. Precious paused, surprised that he was speaking to her. "Getting tired of what, sir?" she asked carefully. "Of life being the same every day," William replied, looking around at his empty house. "Doesn't it get lonely?" Precious thought for a moment. I guess it does, but I've been through worse," she said honestly. "Well, you see, at least here, I have a job, a place to stay, and no one to hurt me." William was quiet for a moment, reflecting on her words. He had never considered what her life might have been like before coming here. He knew nothing about her struggles or the pain she had faced. He had only seen her as a maid, someone who worked in his home. But now, hearing her speak, he realized there was more to her than he had thought. As the days went by, William found himself noticing Precious more and more. She was not like the people he was used to, the ones who only wanted to be around him for his money. Precious was kind and hardworking, never complaining about the tasks given to her. She reminded him of something he hadn't felt in a long time: honesty. One afternoon, As Precious was dusting the living room, William sat on the couch and watched her for a while. "You've been here for a year, haven't you?" he asked suddenly. "Yes, sir," Precious replied, not stopping her work. Her work, she never asked for anything, she didn't complain. "Why is that?" William asked, curious. Precious stopped and looked at him. "Because I know what it's like to have nothing, sir," she said simply. "I'm grateful for what I have now." William nodded, understanding more about her than ever before. Over time, they began to talk more. At first, it was small, simple greetings in the morning or short conversations about the house. But as the weeks passed, their conversations grew longer and deeper. William, who had once been cold and distant, started to find comfort in Precious's presence. She was the only person in his life who didn't treat him like a walking bank account. She didn't flatter him or try to get anything out of him. She was real. One evening, after a long day, William and Precious sat in the kitchen together. William had poured himself a drink, and for the first time, he offered Precious one too. She hesitated, but then accepted, sitting down across from him. "You're different from everyone I know," William said, his voice low. "I don't feel alone when I'm around you." Precious didn't know what to say. She had never expected to hear such words from a man like William. A mix of emotions flooded her: surprise, confusion, and something else she couldn't quite place. And then, slowly but surely, their relationship began to shift. What had started as small talk became deeper connections. They began to find themselves drawn to each other in a way neither had expected. But it was a secret, one they both knew could change everything. Precious was scared. She had come from nothing, and now she found herself in a situation she never could have imagined. Precious wondered if this path could lead to a better life, or if it was just another twist of fate waiting to bring her down again. She had felt different for weeks, tired, dizzy, and oddly happy. She hadn't been feeling like herself, and when she missed her monthly cycle, she realized the reason. She was pregnant. At first, fear gripped her heart, but as she sat alone in her small room, a quiet joy began to grow inside her. She was going to be a mother. The thought of holding her baby made her smile. She imagined a life where William and their child would live together as a family. Precious decided to tell William the news. She thought he would be happy, maybe even excited. After all, they had shared something special, and now they had a child on the way. She waited until he came home from work one evening. It was quiet in the mansion, as usual. Precious stood in the kitchen, her hands shaking as she thought of the right way to tell him. When William finally walked in, looking tired and distracted, Precious gathered all her courage. "William," she called softly. He looked up, frowning slightly. "What is it, Precious?" "I need to tell you something important," Precious said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her heart was beating so fast, she thought it might leap out of her chest. William leaned against the kitchen counter, clearly not in the mood for a serious conversation. "What is it?" "I've had a long day," he said impatiently. Precious took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant, William. We're going to have a baby." For a moment, the room was silent. William's face froze as the words hit him. He stared at her, not saying anything. Precious felt the silence stretch on, her heart pounding in her chest. Her heart sank as she saw the look on his face. It wasn't happiness or joy, it was panic. "Pregnant," William finally said, his voice cold and distant. "How could you let this happen?" Precious felt her heart drop. "But I thought you would be happy," she thought, tears welling up in her eyes. William shook his head, his eyes narrowing. "Happy? Precious, do you even understand what you're saying? Do you understand what this means? I can't have a child with you. What do people think? My reputation, my business, it will all be ruined." Precious stood there, stunned, but she found her voice. "But it's our baby," she whispered, her voice trembling. William stepped closer, his face hard. "No, Precious. This is your problem now. I can't be involved in this. I can't have this baby ruining my life." Precious stared at him, unable to believe the words coming out of his mouth. "William, please," she cried. "We can raise the child together." But William's expression didn't soften. He looked at her with cold eyes, no longer seeing the woman he had shared so much with. "You need to leave, Precious," he said flatly. "You can't stay here anymore." "Where will I go?" "I have no one, William." "I thought you cared about me," Precious pleaded, her voice breaking. William turned away, his back to her. "I can't help you, Precious. I need you out of my life now. Find somewhere else to go." Precious felt like the ground had been pulled out from under her. The man she had trusted, the man she had thought might love her, was sending her away. Pregnant, heartbroken, and completely alone, she packed a few of her belongings, her mind numb with disbelief. She had no idea where she was going. With no money, no family, and no one to turn to, Precious felt completely lost as she walked out of the mansion for the last time. The grand house had once felt like her safe place. Now it felt like a prison she had been set free from, but not in a good way. She felt abandoned and discarded. With the little savings she had left, Precious took a bus to a small town far away. She didn't care where she went, as long as it was far from William and the life she had known. The bus ride was long, and Precious stared out the window, watching the city fade away into the distance. Her heart ached with every mile, the pain of William's betrayal fresh in her mind. When she arrived in the town, everything felt unfamiliar. The people were different, the streets quieter and the air cooler. Precious found a small, run-down room to rent with the last of her savings. It wasn't much, but it was a roof over her head. Alone in the small room, Precious sat on the bed, her hands resting on her stomach. She felt a tiny flutter inside her and closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "I will protect you," she whispered to her unborn child. "I won't let anyone hurt you the way I've been hurt." But deep inside, Precious knew the road ahead would be hard. She had no one to rely on but herself. She was scared of what the future held, but for the sake of her child, she would keep going. The first few months in the new town were tough for Precious. Everywhere she went, people whispered behind her back. Some pointed at her belly, and others shook their heads in disapproval. They saw a young woman, pregnant and alone, and judged her without knowing her story. Precious kept she could to make sure Ezra had everything he needed. Every coin she earned, she saved, and she used it to buy him the little things he needed: clothes, food, toys. Though their life was modest, it was filled with love and warmth. Ezra's laughter filled the small room they shared, and it became the music that made all the hard days fade into the background. As the months went by, Precious began to feel stronger. She had found her purpose in motherhood, and in Ezra, she saw the hope for a future that was brighter than her past. The townspeople continued to whisper behind her back, but Precious no longer cared. She had grown resilient. She had no time for their judgments. She had a son to raise, a life to build, and nothing would stand in her way. Mama Moa remained by her side, always offering support and wisdom, teaching her how to balance motherhood and work. The other women in the market began to see Precious not just as a young, struggling mother, but as a woman who had endured, a woman who was building her future from the ground up. Slowly but surely, they began to treat her with respect. One afternoon, while Precious was out running errands with Ezra in her arms, she overheard a familiar voice. It was William. He had come to the town for business, and as luck would have it, their paths crossed. At first, Precious froze. She hadn't expected to see him. Again, not after everything that had happened. William stood there for a moment, staring at her with wide eyes. His expression was a mix of surprise, guilt, and something else, regret. "Precious," he started, his voice trembling as he took a step toward her. I didn't expect to see you here." Precious felt her heart pound in her chest, her grip tightening around Ezra. She looked at him, and in that moment, everything she had been through rushed back. The pain, the betrayal, the loneliness. She had never wanted to see him again, but here he was, standing in front of her. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice steady but cold. William hesitated, searching her face, as if looking for the woman he once knew. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, his voice filled with remorse. "I made a huge mistake, Precious. I was wrong to push you away. I never should have treated you the way I did." Precious's heart wavered, but she quickly closed it off. She had moved on from him. He had no place in her life anymore, and she wasn't about to let his regret take her back to the past. "You were wrong," she said, her tone firm, "but I'm not the same person you knew. I have a son now, and I'm doing just fine without you." William took a step back, his face falling as he realized the weight of his actions. I understand," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Precious gave him a final, unyielding look before turning away. She had her son, she had her life, and she had the strength to keep moving forward. William could never take that away from her. As she walked away, Ezra giggled in her arms, and the weight of the past felt a little lighter. She had built a life for herself, and it was one she could be proud of, one filled with love, resilience, and hope. Precious smiled proudly each time Ezra's teachers praised him during parent-teacher meetings. "He's smart and works harder than anyone in the class," they'd say. Every word filled her heart with warmth. Although she couldn't afford fancy school supplies or new books, Ezra never asked for more than she could give. He used secondhand textbooks and borrowed pencils from his friends, but his determination to be the best student in the class never wavered. Precious knew all her sacrifices were worth it just to see how far Ezra had come. One day, during Ezra's final year of high school, something unexpected happened. The school principal called him into the office. Ezra walked in nervously, wondering if he'd done something wrong. "Ezra, I have wonderful news for you," the principal said with a wide smile. "Because of your hard work and excellent grades, you've been chosen for a scholarship." Ezra's eyes widened in shock. "A scholarship?" he asked, barely able to believe what he was hearing. "Yes, Ezra," the principal confirmed. "This scholarship will allow you to study in the city at one of the best universities." Ezra could hardly contain his excitement. He raced home after school, bursting through the door. "Mama, Mama, you won't believe what happened," he shouted. Precious looked up from the porch, startled by his excitement. "What is it, Ezra? What's going on?" "I got a scholarship. I got a scholarship," Ezra explained, his face glowing with joy. "They're sending me to the university in the city, and it's all paid for." Precious stood frozen for a moment, her eyes filling with tears. She dropped the spoon she was holding and rushed to Ezra, wrapping him in a tight hug. "Oh, Ezra, I'm so proud of you," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "You worked so hard, and now it's paying off." Ezra held his mother close, feeling the weight of her pride and love. "It's because of you, Mama," he said, his voice soft but full of gratitude. "You've always been there for me, and I want to make you proud." Precious wiped away her tears and smiled, her heart swelling with joy. "You already have, Ezra. You've made me the happiest mother in the world." The days leading up to Ezra's departure for university were filled with excitement, but also a bittersweet sadness. Precious was incredibly proud, but she knew her son was leaving, the small world they had built together. Still, she knew he was going on to great things. She had given him everything she had: love, strength, and the courage to dream. And now, Ezra was ready to chase those dreams. Spoke about the challenges he had overcome, the sacrifices his mother had made for him, and how it had shaped his determination to succeed. His words touched the hearts of many, especially those who had witnessed his journey from a struggling young boy to a driven and focused student. The audience applauded his speech, but Ezra's heart swelled with pride as he thought of his mother, the one who had given him everything despite having nothing herself. Months passed, and Ezra's success at university only grew. He excelled in his studies, made valuable connections, and worked tirelessly to build a future that would not only secure his place in the world, but also bring the happiness his mother deserved. He called her regularly, sharing his achievements and checking in on her, making sure she was well and that she felt his love from afar. One evening, after receiving an award for his academic excellence, Ezra felt it was time to give back to the woman who had given him everything. He made a plan. With the scholarship money he had saved, Ezra decided to fly back to the small town where his mother had struggled so much, where they had both fought for a better life. He would surprise her with something she never expected, a home, one that would provide her with the comfort and security she deserved. When the day came, Ezra returned, his heart pounding as he made his way to the small room where Precious had lived all those years. The familiar streets, the same old market, and the tiny room where they once sat together were all part of the past he would never forget. He knocked on the door, and when Precious opened it, she couldn't believe her eyes. "Ezra," she cried, tears of joy streaming down her face as she embraced him. "I thought I'd be waiting for years to see you again." Ezra smiled, holding her tightly. "I came back to make sure you never have to struggle again, Mama. I've bought a house, a real home for us both. No more worries. It's time for you to rest for once." Precious stood there, overwhelmed, with emotion. After all the hardships, all the years of working tirelessly, this was the moment she had dreamed of, but never dared to believe in. With her son by her side and a new future unfolding, she finally felt at peace. Ezra had done it. He had kept his promise to make her proud. He had not only succeeded, but had built the life they both deserved. Together, they stood at the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. As Ezra continued his studies, he found himself not only excelling academically, but also receiving guidance from a seasoned businessman, Damien. Damien recognized Ezra's potential, especially in the fields of business and economics, and took him under his wing. "Tell me, young man, what are your plans after university?" Damien asked one afternoon, his eyes keenly observing Ezra's response. Ezra, though nervous, spoke confidently. "I want to start my own business, and more than that, I want to repay my mother. She's sacrificed so much for me. I owe everything to her." Damien smiled, clearly impressed. "I see great potential in you. With the right mentorship, you could achieve far more than you imagine," he said. From that moment on, Damien became a mentor to Ezra, connecting him with valuable internships and important contacts. Ezra admired Damien, both for his success and his willingness to guide him. Over time, Damien became more than just a mentor. He became a father figure to Ezra. Every school break, Ezra returned home to visit his mother, Precious, sharing stories of Damien's help and guidance. Precious was grateful for Damien's kindness and often invited him for dinner when Ezra came home. One evening, when Damien came over for dinner, Precious greeted him with warmth. "Thank you for everything you've done for Ezra. It means the world to me," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. Damien waved off the praise with a humble smile. "It's nothing, Precious. Ezra is a fine young man, and it's my pleasure to help him," he said. As time went on, Precious and Damien grew closer. They shared many conversations, and Damien began to see her not just as a hard-working mother, but as a kind, gentle woman who had given everything for her son. Without realizing it, Damien began to fall in love with Precious. One day, Ezra noticed the change in Damien. He could see the way Damien looked at his mother, with soft eyes and a tender smile. Concerned, Ezra decided to confront Damien. "Damien, do you have feelings for my mother?" Ezra asked, his voice direct. Damien, caught off guard, paused for a moment. Then, with a sincere look, he replied, "Yes, Ezra. I do care deeply for your mother. I'm serious about her, but I wouldn't do anything without your blessing." Ezra took a moment to think. He knew Damien was a good man, and above all, he wanted his mother to be happy. So, after a pause, he smiled and said, "I'll support you, but you have to promise me that you'll treat her well." Damien nodded, his expression filled with gratitude. "I promise, Ezra. I will love and respect her with all that I am." Over the next few weeks, Ezra began orchestrating small surprises for his mother and Damien, encouraging them to spend more time together. Whether suggesting they go for walks after dinner or simply sit together while he studied, Ezra could see the bond slowly forming between them. One evening, as Precious washed the dishes, she turned to her son, a curious expression on her face. "Ezra, Why are you trying so hard to get me and Damien together?" Ezra put his book down and looked up at her, his voice soft but serious. "Mama, you've spent so many years taking care of me. You deserve to be happy too. Damien cares about you, and I think you should give him a chance." Precious had spent years putting her son first, ensuring that Ezra had everything he needed despite their struggles. But now, as she sat across from him at the dinner table, she realized he had been watching over her just as much as she had watched over him. "Mama, you've sacrificed so much for me," Ezra said gently. "It's time for you to find happiness too. Damien is a good man, and he cares about you." Precious hesitated. The thought of opening her heart again terrified her. Memories of William, the man who had abandoned her when she needed him most, haunted her. She had sworn never to trust another wealthy man. But Damien, kind, patient, and supportive Damien, was different. "I don't know, Ezra," she admitted. "I'm scared. I don't want to get hurt again." Ezra reached for her hand. "I understand, Mama, but Damien has been there for us. He truly cares about you. Just give him a chance." That night, Precious lay awake, thinking about everything her son had said. She didn't want to be alone forever. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to let someone in again. The next morning, she made a decision. She would give Damien a chance. Their relationship started slowly, but Damien was patient. He treated her with kindness and respect, never rushing her. Their dates were simple: walks in the park, quiet dinners, heartfelt conversations. For the first time in years, Precious felt something she had thought was lost forever: happiness. Ezra watched them grow closer and smiled to himself. Seeing his mother happy again filled his heart with joy. As Ezra neared the end of his university studies, he was already working on launching his own business. At first, it was small, but with determination and Damien's guidance, it began to grow rapidly. Investors took notice, and soon, Ezra was able to buy a beautiful home in the city. He moved his mother there so she and Damien could be closer, ensuring she would never have to struggle again. Meanwhile, William's life had taken a different turn. After throwing Precious out, he had built a successful business, amassing even greater wealth. Along the way, he met Mandy, a woman from his social circle, and they got engaged. At first, their relationship seemed perfect, but as time passed, William realized something was missing. Mandy was beautiful and sophisticated, but their connection lacked warmth and depth. Their conversations felt empty, their laughter forced. He found himself thinking about Precious more often than he cared to admit. One evening, as he sat alone in his grand mansion, he wondered, had he made a terrible mistake? Regret gnawed at him. Precious had loved him selflessly. She had never cared about his money, only about him, and he had thrown her away as if she meant nothing. Unable to ignore the ache in his chest any longer, William decided to find her. He needed to see her again to make things right. But when he finally tracked her down, what he found shattered him. Precious wasn't struggling. She wasn't broken. She was thriving. She stood outside a beautiful home, laughing as she spoke with Damien and Ezra. Her face radiated joy, joy that had nothing to do with him. William's heart clenched. He had expected to find her desperate, longing for his return. Instead, she was happier than she had ever been. He wanted to approach her, to apologize, to beg for another chance. But as he watched her smile at Damien, a painful truth settled in his chest. He had lost her, and this time there was no getting her back. Mandy was everything William thought he was supposed to want. She came from the same elite world as him, understood wealth, and played her part in high society. But something was missing. Unlike Precious, Mandy didn't listen to him, didn't support him the way Precious had. Precious used to sit with him, even when she didn't fully understand the complexities of business, and offer comfort. She cared, but Mandy was only interested in status, luxury, and parties. Despite the nagging doubts, William convinced himself that this was his path. He had built a thriving empire, amassed wealth beyond imagination, and had a fiancée who fit his social status. But life had other plans. A series of bad investments shook his company's foundation. At first, he ignored the warning signs, believing he could turn things around. But as the months passed, the losses mounted. His business was failing. His financial empire, his pride, was crumbling beneath him. One evening, William sat in his grand office, staring at the financial reports with trembling hands. The numbers were undeniable. He was on the verge of bankruptcy. Taking a deep breath, he turned to Mandy, expecting her to stand by him. After all, they were engaged. She was supposed to be his partner, but her reaction shattered his last illusion. "We should dissolve our engagement," Mandy said coldly, not a trace of concern in her voice. William blinked, unable to process her words.
"What?"
"Mandy, we can fix this. I just need time." "I don't have time for a failing businessman," she replied bluntly. "I need someone who can maintain my lifestyle. I refuse to be dragged down with you." With that, she turned on her heel and walked out of his life. William sat frozen, shock numbing his body. Just like that, the woman he thought was his perfect match had abandoned him at the first sign of struggle. His mind drifted back to Precious, the woman he had cast aside so easily. Precious had never cared about his wealth. She had loved him, believed in him, and he had thrown her away. Regret hit him like a wave. He had let go of the only person who had ever truly cared about him because of his pride. And now he was alone. Desperation clawed at his chest. He needed help, but there was only one person he wanted to see, the woman he had wronged all those years ago, the mother of his child. Determined, he rose from his chair. He had to find Precious. He had to make things right, if it wasn't already too late. Precious froze when she saw William standing beside Ezra. Her heart pounded in her chest as memories of the past flooded back. William, on the other hand, was speechless. He had spent years building his empire, but nothing could prepare him for this moment. "Mom, this is Mr. William, the businessman I was telling you about," Ezra said cheerfully, oblivious to the tension between them. Precious forced a small smile, her mind racing. "Hello, Mr. William," she said calmly. William swallowed hard. "Precious, it's been a long time." Ezra looked between them, sensing something was off. "You two know each other?" he asked, confused. Precious took a deep breath. "Yes, Ezra. William, he's your father." The words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Ezra's face turned pale as he looked at William, searching for any sign that this was a joke. "My father?" Ezra whispered, his voice barely audible. William's throat tightened. "Ezra, I didn't know," he admitted, his voice filled with regret. "If I had known." "But you did know," Precious interrupted, her voice firm. "You knew I was pregnant when you threw me out. You made your choice, William." Ezra clenched his fists, emotions swirling inside him. The man he had admired in the business world, the man he had considered a mentor, was the same man who had abandoned his mother. "All these years, you never looked for me?" Ezra asked, his voice laced with pain. William's eyes filled with guilt. "I was a coward," he admitted. "I let my pride and status blind me, and it was the worst mistake of my life." Precious placed a gentle hand on Ezra's shoulder. "You don't need him, Ezra. We built our own life without him." Ezra took a deep breath, looking at the man who had given him life but not love. "You're right, Mom," he said. Turning to William, he added, "I respect you as a businessman, but as a father, you were never there. I don't need anything from you now." William felt a deep ache in his heart. He had lost everything, his business, his fiancée, and now, the chance to be a father to the son he never knew. "Ezra, please," William started, but Ezra shook his head. "Goodbye, Mr. William," Ezra said firmly, taking his mother's hand and walking away. As William watched them leave, he realized the true cost of his past mistakes. He had spent years chasing wealth and status, only to end up with nothing that truly mattered. Meanwhile, Precious and Ezra walked side by side, stronger than ever. They had built their own success, their own happiness without him, and that was all they needed.